Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Football Fandemic, where we are at the midpoint of the season. We're going to take a bit to look back at what's happened so far, what we expect to happen. We're going to do a trick or treat segment on some of the trade deadline information. Join us here on the Football Fandemic. All right, everybody. Well, this is a big time in I started to say this semester, in the season. We are not in college. We are in a football season, and it's a big time in the season because we're about at the halfway point, right? So we've finished 8 weeks. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And now there are going to be, I guess, 9 weeks left. It used to be this like exact midpoint when we had a 16-week season, but now we've got 17-week season. So you can look at this upcoming week as the midpoint, I guess, in that. But however it is, teams have started to show who they are. And we're going to talk about that some today. We're going to talk about some of the trade deadline information, the stuff that happened there, as well as some news around the NFL. And I think we're going to start there with some of the news that's going on around the NFL this last week. So maybe of interest to some people, playoff Lenny, Leonard Fournette, has signed with a team, and he is now playing with the Bills. And found himself a place on a roster there. So that's good for Leonard Fournette. I don't know if anybody out there is a big Fournette fan. For me, he was always like, okay, he didn't do great in the season, but when he got to playoffs, he did well. That's why they call him Playoff Lenny, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the bigger news for me this week, and we're going to save trade deadline stuff. We're going to save that for a little later in the show. But after the trade deadline, it was about 10 o'clock at night after the trade deadline. I was laying in my bed, looked at my phone, and what do you know? Mark Davis and the Raiders finally said, you know what? We've had enough of you, Josh McDaniels. We signed you to a 4-year deal? We're only 1 year in.
Fully guaranteed.
4 guaranteed. They're 1 year in, right?
2 years.
So it's three.
This is the second year.
Right. Oh, wait. I thought he had 3 more years, but maybe the rest of this year and 2 more years. Guaranteed pay, guaranteed pay that he gets. Josh McDaniels is going to be getting paid $40 million to just kind of hang around, and maybe he's even going to go with another team, but he's still going to be getting this pay as well. So Josh McDaniels out as the head coach. Remember when he stood the Colts up at the altar? He said, no thanks. I'm going to continue with New England Patriots. Then he goes to the Raiders, and we're all like, oh man. And you know what? I think the Colts got the better end of that deal. Everybody would agree. But they also fired their GM, Dave Ziegler. He's gone. And so the offensive coordinator also gone, right?
Yep.
But they just said basically, we hate the way this is going. This is stupid. You guys aren't doing a good job at all. And so they raised up one of the people on the team to be the head coach, and I can't remember his name.
Antonio Pierce, the linebacker.
Antonio Pierce.
Former player, former linebacker.
Former player, right? And so I don't know if they've got a GM in place.
Not yet.
Or if that's going to happen.
And they promoted somebody to offensive coordinator. But this is honestly what the team needs, Antonio Pierce, because obviously Josh McDaniels is not a player-oriented guy, I guess. Not like a player chemistry type of guy where he mixes well with the players, and he understands them and helps them. Antonio Pierce has been a player. He knows where these players on the roster are currently coming from. He knows what these guys are doing, and so to put him in that role as a former player, I think is gonna help for the rest of the season at least. Maybe not moving forward with if he's head coach or not next year, but at least for the next 9 games. Is going to help the Raiders, players build that chemistry with their coach, because obviously they did not have it with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, it's a matter of will he have what they need to do good plays, as well as getting along with the players. But Josh McDaniels is a conundrum, because every time he's in New England, their offense looks really good. He was in New England. He went away to Denver. He came back to New England, and it looked good. It was like it took a dip when he was in Denver. It came back up and looked good when he came back. Now he goes to the Raiders, and they've kind of been down a little bit. And now you watch, he'll go back to New England. Bill Belichick will call him up and say, "Hey, Joshy McD, come over here and save my job again." And because he's a defensive guy, but he's not the offensive guy. He'll get in there, and we'll see what happens. But it's funny because as good as he is at running an offense, in New England, it seems like it doesn't translate anywhere else. He
Yep.
went to Denver and he had Tim Tebow, right?
Yep. He went to Denver. I'm looking at it right now. He was Michigan State grad in '99. Went to Patriots from 2001 to 2008. Was a personal assistant, defensive assistant, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach. Went to Denver, head coach '09 and 10. So I don't know if he fully got the Tim Tebow experience, but because I think he started was a full time starter in 11. But first year went
Wasn't
8 and
he the
8.
one that drafted?
Yeah, he did, but I don't know if he.
Mm-hmm.
But he was fired mid-season 2010, so he didn't get the full Tim Tebow experience. But he went 8 and 8 in his 2009 season, and I remember this season. It was either this season or the coach before in the year before, but they started like 8 and 5 or 8 and 3 or something like that, and they lost their last 5 games with Kyle Orton or Jay Cutler or something like that. And then they went in 2010. He was fired after 12 games. He went to the Rams as an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach with Sam Bradford as the quarterback, either fired or left. I don't know. Went to the Patriots from 2012 to 2019, or 2012 to 2021 as a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. Left in 21 or 2022 for the Raiders and got fired.
Yeah. And so those years that you see him with the New England Patriots, they did well. But when he went to those other two places, not so well, and ended up being fired from the two head coaching jobs. I don't know what happened. I can't remember what happened with St. Louis. Sam Bradford sort of thing. But if I remember correctly, Sam Bradford never had a season over 8 and 8, did he? Because that was the Jeff Fisher way. I go 8 and 8.
He had like one season. I think it was rookie season, maybe, but otherwise, yeah, they always win 8 and 8. And although a lot of the stuff,
Sam Bradford, I just want to say that was the last dude to get paid huge before they went to the rookie pay scale. So where everybody gets like lower numbers. Oh, yeah. He got like 130 some million as a rookie signing, something like that. I can't remember. It was over 100.
6 years, $78 million, $50 million guaranteed, and a maximum value of $86 million. Which
86? I was sure it was over 100, but okay. But even that, $86 million. You compare that to what a starting quarterback gets now. It's like maybe 12. Something massive payday before he ever did anything. And then he had some trades where he got massive paydays, even though he was never playing well, never playing great. He got, when he went for a second contract, whatever. At Sam Bradford, he knew how to make some money for a guy who was never an elite quarterback. So, but anyway, Josh McDaniels out. Dave Ziegler out. Mike Lombardi out. We got Anthony Pierce.
Antonio.
One of those names, as their head coach. They also then came out and said, we're benching Jimmy Garoppolo. Done with him, basically.
What's funny about this whole situation is they benched him, like 2 days ago? And, I mean, it's obligatory, I guess, or, it's, I guess, supposed to happen. He's on the team, but it's his birthday today, Jimmy Garoppolo's, and the Raiders put up a happy birthday with a graphic of him, whatever. And it's like, happy birthday. And a lot of people are coming, happy birthday, get benched 2 days earlier or something like that.
Happy birthday, you're done. But yeah, I have a feeling what we're seeing there is Mark Davis is like, all right, these guys are no good. Get them out. And we're not necessarily sticking with the way this old regime was. And we're not necessarily going to try and win a bunch more this year because we want to get a high draft pick for next year. That's what it looks like. There's another team that I think is doing a little bit of that as well. We'll talk about them later. So anyway, that's what's going on in Raiders. When we started off the year, I thought they would be horrible. They actually won 3 games, and I was like, oh, maybe they're not going to be so horrible. But my guess is they're going to lose more games than, there will be that little initial adrenaline bump, play for the new coach right after, and then that'll taper off, and there will be a lot of losing. Yep. All right, that's all we're going to hit for news today. We know there's more, but we're going to put all that in another segment down here when we talk about some of the trade deadline stuff that happened or didn't happen, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to talk a little bit about our prediction at the beginning of the year. We predicted all the games before we knew anything, who would play, who would be great, who would not. Our predictions so far. Josh, what did happen this week?
So this was actually a full week. We're in week 8, and surprisingly, no team had a bye. So all 16 games were played, and we went 9-7 this week. So we improved by 2 games, and improved. I guess technically got worse by 1 loss. We went 9-7 this week, 7-6 the last week, and improved to an overall record of 70-55. So for us starting out, no injuries, like we didn't expect the Bengals to do this bad or the Buccaneers to be, this good or whatever. I think we're doing all right.
So when you say no teams had a bye last week, what do you mean by that? Like
No
none of
teams,
the
no teams were on a bye.
no teams were on a bye. Didn't we have some with a bye already? It
Yeah,
just
like
happened to be
2 weeks ago. This is a week where, yeah.
that's weird. I thought they tried to do that like every week in the middle somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird to me that I didn't even think about it last week that no teams were on a bye. We do have teams on a bye this week, but interesting stuff. Okay, so that's kind of where we are standing wise. We're still in the positive. What is that? 15 game positive.
Above, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So we'll see how it goes from here on out. I think the Raiders may begin to help us more. And we'll still see some teams. Looks like the Jets may begin to help us more a little bit too. It looks like they're kind of getting some wins in there that we predicted them to win a lot. And then we thought, oh man, with Zach in there, with Zach Wilson, we're not going to get a lot of wins, but they've gotten some and maybe they'll get more. We'll see. And Aaron Rodgers, they're talking, the coach
He's coming back, yeah.
is like, yeah, he's coming back. And everybody's like, what? And he's standing on the sidelines throwing the ball every week. He did this like unheard of new surgery, not unheard of, that's not the right word, but maybe experimental. I don't know, experimental new surgery. And Aaron Rodgers thinks he's going to be back this season, and it's looking like he might, and they're talking like he might, and now we're all starting to believe he might be back. So maybe, I don't know if it'll be enough to get him into the playoffs and vaunt them, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. Let's look at week 8. Week 8, homer teams specifically, but we'll also talk about some of the Brandon Harris or the Blake Harris corner a little bit. But let's start with you because you always have like a whole lot. I'm just going to start with you. Let you kind of go through this Commander stuff. Yeah,
I will start with nothing related to our game week 8, but this is the 1-year anniversary of Dan Snyder announcing he's willing to sell. So,
and it happened. You thought it would never.
It never happened, but it happened. And I guess although it wasn't the official selling date, which was like 6 months ago, but just him announcing he's willing to sell is enough for Commanders fans or Redskins, whatever, to get happy. And I don't know what people view the team as. I view them as the Redskins, but in a world like this, it's kind of hard to say things. So, but back to the game of Commanders Eagles, I predict them to the Eagles to win 34-10, and our only points coming in the fourth quarter. Whenever they rest their starters or whatever, and it was much closer than that. For some reason, I do not know why in the world we always perform up to par with the Eagles. We lost in overtime the first time by a touchdown or a field goal maybe, and we lost by like less than a one score. It was a one score possession game this game, and I don't understand why we always perform good against the Eagles, or maybe even just top teams in general. We haven't really had a top team besides the Eagles. We play them, but we lost terribly to the Bills. Sorry. And then we always lose badly to terrible teams like the Giants and the Bears. So it's like, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just Ron Rivera's thing where he always beats good teams at least once a year or performs up to par. And then it's like, oh yeah, we perform great. And he just is lazy with things against bad teams because he doesn't expect much. I don't know what it is, but at
he's
least
giving you false hope.
Exactly.
Right? He's getting you all excited. We did this good against the Eagles. We can do something, and then you don't.
Yeah, at least he's, at least there's something there to be proud of. We performed great against one of the best, actually the best team in the NFL currently record-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So at least there's something there. But like I mentioned last week also, we talked about the offensive line. These changes might need to be made. I suggested put Tyler Larson in and take Andrew Wiley out. Although Andrew Wiley was not out, Tyler Larson was in because our current center, Nick Gates, was injured, as well as our left guard, Saquid Charles, was injured. And throughout the whole game, I've been complaining about the offensive line pretty much every single week of the NFL, weeks 1 through 8. The offensive line as a total, only against the Eagles defensive line that has Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and Derek Barnett, a very, very ferocious defensive line, only allowed 1 sack. And the one sack came, I believe, in the fourth quarter, again, of course, against Andrew Wiley, our worst offensive lineman. But Chris Paul, our left guard, who filled in for Saquid Charles, and Tyler Larson, who I've been talking about the last couple of weeks, filled in for our center, Nick Gates, both performed exceptionally well. And if Ron Rivera is as smart as he thinks he is, because none of us Commanders fans think he's smart at all. If he thinks he's as smart as he thinks he is, he would continue to start these guys, improve the offensive line, and maybe if he wants to have a chance at saving his job, he'd continue to start these guys. But
You think there's a chance?
I don't. I think with what the end of the owners have been doing the last week, which we'll talk about in a minute with the trades and stuff, and him having zero involvement with the trades, the suggestions of what we get in return or whatever. I think he's officially out by the end of the season. I just think it's a matter of the owners not wanting to put a lot of pressure on, like the Raiders just put a lot of pressure on the team and the GM and the ownership or whatever to find a new guy or to pick a new interim head coach, which would probably end up being Eric Bieniemy. But overall, just
But
pick these guys.
I think a couple weeks ago we talked about hot seats, and we thought Ron Rivera was at the top of that. And Josh McDaniels beat him out. Josh McDaniels said, "You want to see hot seat? Check my backside." And he's gone. The good thing about if they would let Ron Rivera go is Bieniemy would start getting experience being the head coach, and they would have an excuse when they didn't win a bunch of games. They'd be like, "Well, he's new. He's just getting started and all this, but next season's going to be great." Whereas if you wait till the end of the season, you're not exactly sure what Eric Bieniemy is even going to be.
I guess, yeah, we get to see him for right at this point. If Rivera's fired, today, we get to see Eric Bieniemy or whoever it is, Eric Bieniemy, Jack Del Rio, because it might be honestly Jack Del Rio, which I'd not be a fan of because he was a previous head coach for a long time for the Jaguars and a couple years for the Raiders during the 2000s and 2010s. So it might even be him, but I would not like to see that. I'd like to see, Eric we're 3-5, in a very tough conference in the NFC. We got the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Eagles, Cowboys, not Vikings, Lions, and whoever wins the NFC South. So we are fighting for a wild card spot technically, but we have one of the hardest based off of, how the other teams have played. We have one of the toughest schedules heading forward to the last half of the season. So if I expect anything, I would expect the Eric Bieniemy just to give, the ownership to give Eric Bieniemy a shot, see what he has. If not, put him back at OC, move forward with a new guy next year. You know what I mean? So I can see that, but back to the game in general.
Real quick, before you go back to the game, I just want to highlight something you said. You said in a very tough NFC division, and you started naming all the teams, and I just thought to myself, how great it is. Remember the last couple of years when it was like AFC was like amazing and NFC was the Eagles. And that was it. So it's good to see some people rising again in the NFC. But anyway, as you were saying about the game.
Sam Howell, very, very, very performed up to par, if not better than Jalen Hurts, at least passing wise. Not sure about rushing.
You were excited. I remember.
I was very excited. He made some great throws. Of course, one of them came at the very end of the game where we were down 38 to 24. And he threw like a perfect pass to Jamison Crowder. We had like a minute left. We didn't get the onside kick and we lost. But Jalen Hurts' stats was 29 for 38, 319 yards and 4 touchdowns, and 6 rushing yards. And so I guess he performed better in the rushing game too. Sam Howell had 11 rushing yards. And then passing wise, he was 39 for 52, basically 400 yards, 397 yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception. So if it wasn't for that interception, I honestly still think he performed better than him. If it wasn't for that interception, he clearly did. But that interception might, lean towards people thinking Jalen Hurts performed better. But overall, I think Sam Howell has performed well above exceptions than I thought he would, because of our offensive line and our coaching. He's performed above expectations for me so far, halfway through the season. And then Jahan Dotson, who dropped the ball that would have been a first down last week against the Giants, might have given us a tie game if we went for the 2-point win. I give us the win. Had a bounce back game. Everybody was hating on him. He's like, this guy's, why is he even starting? But Jahan Dotson went for 8 receptions, 108 yards, and a touchdown. So he had a great bounce back game.
I hate it because I have him on my fantasy team, and I put him in last week, and he got me nothing. And so I put him on the bench this week, and I would have won easily with him in there. I lost by like a couple points, and he would have so rocketed me over that.
And so back to Sam Howell, he was my MVP for the week. I almost gave it to Chris Paul, our left guard, who I mentioned earlier, but for one reason, I couldn't find a good picture of him to crop out and put on Photoshop. And the second reason is it's hard finding offensive lineman stats before, 0 pressures allowed and 0 sacks. Other than that, it's very hard to find offensive line stats. So I just had to give Sam Howell because, he performed better, if not equally as good as Jalen Hurts did. So I feel like he deserved it as well as Chris Paul. So I'm going to go co-MVP, and I can't make a graphic for two, but Chris Paul and Sam Howell, my MVPs for the week. And I'd like to point out and looking at it again, because I was at the Colts game. I wasn't watching this game. I wasn't, keeping up play-by-play stuff. So all my analysis came from watching highlights or people on Twitter complaining and saying stuff. Um, we our defense performed very well for the first three quarters. We gave up 17 points, and then for some reason it was a 17-17 game by the fourth quarter. And for some reason, what come the fourth quarter, they gave up 21. So if our defense was any better, played any better than they have been the last couple weeks, we probably would have won this game, which we predicted we'd win this game. And on our predictions in July and August, we predicted that Commanders would upset them at home, and they came close. And overall, I'm excited for what the future holds. Honestly, offense. Once we get a new head coach and a new GM and new whatever, I'm excited for what happens because we have draft picks now, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. Once we talk about our week 8 stuff and our mid-season grades.
Yeah. So looking at the Colts this week, I feel like I'm going to be a broken record here for a few weeks in a row, and that is, it was hard to pick like who was my favorite player in this, and I'll get to who that is in a minute. But Gardner Minshew, I think with him, we're really just seeing that he can do decent, but he's never going to be the one to carry this team. This is why he's not our quarterback one. He's not the one to carry this team when times are hard and to make it happen. He does great, has some turnovers. And you're like, Michael Pittman Jr. did okay. Josh Downs did all right. Alec Pierce actually caught some balls. Good for him. But it wasn't enough. I know we had some defensive pieces out. But again, I think the Colts are at this place where they can like put up a fight and they've got some spark, but they're just not a strong team yet in all facets. And I think it starts with people being able to plan for Gardner Minshew's style. Whereas when we had Anthony Richardson in, they didn't know how to plan. And so their plan was all off, even when Minshew would come in. When he would come in, they had already all week practiced for a certain kind of style, and Minshew could benefit from that. But when they're planning for Minshew, it seems like they have his number. And I gave the MVP this week, the Colts MVP, to Jonathan Taylor. And you may be saying, Jonathan Taylor didn't even rush for 100 yards. Well, he rushed for like 90 in the first half and was looking great. Second half, he got one carry for 5 yards, I think it was, ended with 95 yards. And they didn't use him anymore. And I think that shows you he is valuable, and we need to play him more. Colts should not have got away from that run game. It was like either a tie game or a 1-point game when we went into that second half. And there's no reason to abandon the run like they did. And I know they may have given it to Zach Moss some, but you need to use Jonathan Taylor. He's coming back into form. He seems to know how to hit holes and hit them hard. Yeah. They should have played him more.
He had a breakout run that almost was a touchdown if it wasn't caught. Like at the 25-yard line, he ran it for 50 yards, and that was where a majority of his yards came from. And I think that set him up for one of the touchdowns, or at least a field goal. I know it was a point, but we were on the opposite side of the end zone, so we were in the non-opening window, I guess if you want to call it. We were on the south side of the stadium, I believe. And sadly, we saw it, but it was very far away, so we only saw a glimpse of it. But that Alec Ogletree catch was that throw was also great. Perfect accuracy, perfect, destination for the throw. And Alec Ogletree made a play, so that was very exciting to see.
Yeah, and see, that's what Gardner Minshew has, is he can get some accuracy that Anthony Richardson is still working to get. But he's limited in a lot of the rest of his game. And if he has to hold the ball for very long at all, it really falls apart fast for him. He's best when he's throwing it fast. So I really, the problem is I wish Anthony Richardson was getting reps and getting kind of acclimated to the speed of the game, because next year we're going to have him again with very few games under his belt, and he's going to have to be seeing defenses. It's different when you're on the field and those defenses are running at you than when you're standing on the sideline watching. And so I really look forward to having him, and I hope he can get back healthy. And I'm glad, I'd rather do this than do what we did with Andrew Luck, and that is push him back and him get hurt more and more and then quit, So anyway, that's the Colts. Packers, I'll tell you this, they didn't do great.
They didn't do great, but I'll speak a little bit on the Packers based off the score and the stats, but also.
Oh, wait, he's here.
Oh, he's here.
He's with us. Brandon is in his car. He must have been listening and knows we're at this place. Brandon,
Yep.
talk to us, sir.
Howdy,
What
can you hear me
happened
now?
with the? We can. What happened with the
Oh my
Packers
gosh.
this week? We just were getting to the
We're just talking
Packers
about it.
review of Week 8.
Well, I guess I had good timing. I literally just logged in.
Oh, we thought you were listening, and then you're like, "I got to get in there. I got to say something."
Now I'm sitting outside of where I had my work meeting. Things for the Packers are not good. They are not good. That's
Yeah,
the official breakdown.
Tell me about last week's game. Don't talk yet about what happened at the trade deadline. What happened at last week's game?
All right, Minnesota Vikings. All right, we know Blake thinks this is Minnesota's division. We contest that. It's the Lions' division. We know that. Minnesota comes in. Now they spank us around and beat us, as expected. Defense not holding up. Preston Smith actually making a pretty good argument for quarterback 2. We've seen him in that role for last couple seasons now with Joe Barry, but he had a pass deflection at the end zone. That's the most impressive thing I've seen from him do. I don't think he's ready to tackle Devontae Adams in one-on-one coverage. I don't think he's ready to take on Jordan Addison in one-on-one coverage every play. But he did have a pass deflection to the end zone. Offense could not get anything going. Aaron Jones, here's the thing. I like watching these statistical measures of position players against position players, and you put them on this big chart. And someone put up one on Twitter about running back efficiency. And I'm looking through it, and I'm looking through it, and I'm looking through it. Aaron Jones is not on this list. I'm like, what the heck? Like, he missed a couple games. That's fine. But he should have hit the minimum to be on this list for rushes. He has not hit that minimum rushing attempt to be on that list. Do you know how frustrating that is? Well, both of you do, because he's on your fantasy team.
Yeah,
I do.
Do you know how frustrating that is as a fan to have who I believe our best offensive player just, I can't do it. You know, we're not calling plays for the guy. Call plays for Aaron Jones. He makes magic happen.
Exactly.
That's why you guys drafted him in fantasy. Like, he's not a late round pick. He doesn't go undrafted. He's in the first 5 rounds every year.
Yep.
For every fantasy league, and we're not using him. It's very frustrating. Growing.
Let me ask you this.
Let me tell you this.
What's your theory now at this point of Jordan Love? I know at the beginning of the year you were kind of high on him and thinking he was going to be better than everybody expected. I know there's been some down weeks, at least from a fantasy perspective. I have him on my team, and I know that week in and week out, he is not giving me the points I need.
Yeah, Jordan Love is a very interesting conversation to have. I still like Jordan Love. I still think he can play. I still think he's kind of a raw player, which is okay. What I don't like is there's not a cast around him that's able to display what he's able to do. So we've seen Jordan, and one of his interceptions was a great example. A beautifully, perfectly thrown ball, 3 inches of space he needed, where this ball was. Perfect placement to Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed bobbled it in front of 2 defenders, and it got intercepted.
Yeah,
and it's something we've talked about. You know, that was not a quarterback fault interception. That was a receiver fault interception. So it's frustrating to see this. Yes, we have the youngest team, the youngest offense in the NFL, average age of 24, 25, something like that. Youngest in the NFL. And so it's pretty hard. I think a lot of the concepts we're trying to go through are too complicated for them. I'm ready for Joe Barry to be done.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because you sent this to me yesterday, so I thought I'd ask because I couldn't quote tweet it or put a pull up. Is Joe Barry worse than Hitler or Osama bin Laden?
Yeah, that was a tweet I saw. Very much one direction, one-sided in that. I don't know if I have comments on that I want to put on the record for everyone to hear. So I'll just leave it as the tweet I sent you. I sent it to you as a fellow,
Joe Barry
on your team guy.
Yeah.
Maybe you had some thoughts, but I'll leave my personal thoughts off the record.
I just want to say, I just kind of clicked this because I wanted to see where the Colts ranked in youngest team. I thought they were like 4th, but actually the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the youngest team, and the Green Bay Packers are 2nd.
So it might be youngest offense then. We do have some veteran defensive players. Preston Smith has played for a while.
Yeah.
Jair Alexander has played for a while. Kenny Clark has played for a while. Someone that doesn't play for us anymore, and I'm going to roll right into this because it pissed me off, is Rasul Douglas. Oh, go ahead.
We got to talk about our Blake Harris corner.
Oh, I can't get into the trade yet. All right, let's go to our Blake Harris corner.
We got Blake Harris corner. We got midseason review, and then trade.
Well, Blake Harris, we're just going to hit this. This is just looking at some of the other teams that are not our homer teams. Mm-hmm. Jets win the Battle of New York, right? They beat the Giants. I think I fully expected that. I expected it before overtime, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
But good for the Jets. And again, we picked the Jets to win a lot because we thought Aaron Rodgers was there. Yep. And now Aaron Rodgers talking about his experimental surgery. He may be back this year. Now the coaches are saying they expect him back this year, and seeing him on the sidelines throwing, it looks like he may be back this year. And so our predictions may, especially if Zach Wilson keeps winning some of these along the way, they may do better than we expected once Aaron Rodgers fell off. So
if they're statistically alive, Aaron's going to push to be there.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Right now, they're statistically alive.
They are.
Yeah.
They're like the 8th seed or something like that.
Cowboys beat the Rams in dominating fashion. That ruins my streak of picking the upset of the week because I picked the Rams over the Cowboys. That did not happen at all. It looks pretty lopsided there. So
now you know what I enjoyed about that.
What?
Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are both
on
my fantasy team. I've reaped every benefit of that.
Well, I just want Blake to hear that you have chosen Cowboy people to be on your fantasy team, players, and that they won. Blake, we're not always against you, just most of the time. But Cowboys beat the Rams. Panthers grabbed their first win against the Texans. I totally thought the Texans would win because Frank Reich and, but the Panthers are on the board. They've got one win. We have no teams now in the league with 0 wins. So they have one. Cardinals have one. They're vying for number 1 spot in the draft at this point. But the Panthers played the Colts this week. They could get their second win. As much as I hate to say that, we'll see. 49ers continue their losing rut here, losing to the Bengals. And Brock Purdy didn't look good this week. So we have to begin to question, this what we thought was powerhouse, what we thought would be a Super Bowl team. Is it really? They may get things back in order and they may get back on track. But right now, it's been a few weeks of looking like not that against some teams. So
although I will say
Browns,
for some of
Vikings,
this game,
Bengals. What's that?
And so I will say for some of this game, maybe this game and some of the week before, Brock Purdy had a concussion and he was cleared to play this week, but some of that might be lingering. That medical side of things might be lingering. That might be why he didn't play as well. But overall, I think we're starting to see. If it's not, I think we're starting to see the real Brock Purdy become Mr. Irrelevant instead of Mr. Relevant. And, it's just, I guess that also proves that not everybody works in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Right. Luckily, they got rid of Garoppolo and they got rid of Trey Lance. Although Garoppolo may be available again.
Maybe.
Now that everybody's been fired in Las Vegas, he's been benched. Maybe they'll be like, hey, do you want him back, 49ers?
Well, you can't do a trade at this point of the season anymore.
Oh, that's
Trade's
right.
Over.
Yeah. Done. That's funny that they waited till the day of the trade deadline. They waited till after the trade deadline was over. Then they fired everybody and benched Garoppolo. And he's probably thinking, why didn't you trade me? Now I'm going to be sitting. I guess he's going to be sitting and getting paid. Yeah. I guess he probably doesn't care. So anyway, let's see what else we got. Broncos upset the Chiefs. This should have been my upset of the week because that's a big one. And here's the beautiful thing, and I don't know if you put this on here. They held them to 0 touchdowns. That's a big thing. But here's the big thing. After the Broncos beat the Chiefs, they blasted Taylor Swift on the loudspeakers. They blasted music as people were leaving, Taylor Swift music for the whole time.
Well, so Matthew, another great part about that game that you'll appreciate is this is the first time the Broncos have beat the Chiefs since Peyton Manning retired.
Ooh.
16 consecutive times the Chiefs have won, eight seasons. Does that sound about right? Peyton's been retired for 8 seasons.
Yeah.
Well, aside from the Peyton Manning part, I just love when Kansas City loses.
Yeah, me too.
I think I've made no secret that I'm not a fan of Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, even though I draft Travis Kelce as my tight end every chance I get, and Patrick Mahomes will put up fantasy numbers. They're good. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm saying I'm not a fan, and so they lost. Woo!
Moving on to our next one, Matthew. I'm going to take over this one because I'll ask you these questions.
What?
But first, I'll say, my boy, my favorite quarterback, my favorite backup quarterback is Heineke, and Taylor Heineke is back. Desmond Ridder was benched during this game. He started the rest of the game, and they named Taylor Heineke starter for the rest of this, not rest of the season, but at least this week. So Taylor Heineke is back in the league, and honestly, this gives them so many more opportunities and so many more chances. Coming from a personal perspective of Heineke being on my team the last couple of years, but also they were down 28-3 or something, 28-7 or something like that in the first half, and Taylor Heineke almost brought them back to win. They lost by 5 points. So seeing that what he can do with that team, and that how that chemistry is already built within 9 weeks of him being, or no, 9 weeks of regular season being on the team, I think they already, and seeing all the other teams how they're having troubles trying to keep up in the NFC South, I think the Falcons might actually win the NFC South with Taylor Heineke. But Matthew has been always vocal about how Will Levis is not good. He won't be good, but he put up numbers, 4 touchdowns, 2 more touchdowns than Ryan Tannehill has had all season long. And so, Matthew, what do you think about Will Levis's career day, or first career game, I guess?
Yeah, it looks like at this current moment, I'm going to be eating some crow. I did not want the Colts to draft Will Levis, and I'm going to stay on that. I don't, I want Anthony Richardson for his potential, not for who he is now. And he was exciting me in those weeks when he was playing. He's out for this year. Hopefully he learns, gets better, gets reps, gets up to speed, all that stuff. But I may have to, take back some words about Will Levis. The hard part about this year for me is going to be that everybody's going to say, oh, of the young quarterbacks, CJ Stroud was awesome. Will Levis is looking great. Bryce Young is not looking great, but he's starting to, and Anthony Richardson's going to be out of that conversation for most of this year. He's not going to be talked about. And remember at the beginning of the season, I said the thing I like about having this young quarterback is at least everything is going to be exciting and I'll have something to look forward to. I don't have that the rest of this year. So I'm just going to have to watch these 3, especially Will Levis, who was taken after all of the other ones. If he does well, that's going to be those stupid Titans fans. Sorry if you're a Titan fan out there, but man, Titans fans are some of the most annoying people in the world, along with Texans fans. Anyway.
And Bears fans. And Bears.
Here's what I'll say. Jacksonville Jaguar fans typically are like, hey, man, your team's good. We were better. Or, hey, yeah, you beat us, but we were, they're not annoying. What I hate is when somebody does good one time, they're like, haha, take that, all you crybabies, all you stupid, and they're going off. I'm like, these fans are driving me nuts, but that's Tennessee fans. And so I hope Will Levis does not do well the rest of the year. That sounds bad, wishing a player does not do well, but I don't like Tennessee Titans. I like people. Mike Vrabel's a good guy. I don't want him to win. Will Levis, okay, you may do well. I don't want you to win. We'll see. I'm still glad we didn't take him. So that's my thing. He did get 4 touchdowns. He did look good. I'm not going to deny that. So good job, Will Levis. And I do hope you do well in your career. I just hope the Colts do better.
Moving on to our last week 8 recap before we move on to our midseason review for our quarterbacks and or whatever. Kirk Cousins tears his ACL. So Brandon, what does this mean for the Packers as they move forward with the Vikings move forward with their new quarterback and already ahead of the Packers in the division? What does this mean for the Packers? Do they have any better chance of getting that wild card spot, or are they already out? 2-5 or 2-4. Are they already done? They're just looking for a draft pick.
Yeah, I don't know if we're just looking for a draft pick. I have my Packers right now. If they get their stuff together, I think maybe 6 wins. I don't think that's going to be enough to get in the wild card spot.
No, not at all. I think the Vikings.
If it did, that is very concerning.
Very, yeah.
If the Packers had 6 wins and got that 7th seed, I would be concerned for the NFC.
Yeah.
There's larger problems going on. No, I think Packers max of 6 wins this season. It's going to be tough to get past that. I do feel bad for Kirk Cousins, and I don't say this publicly, so I'm not going to. But there might be a player on the Vikings that I was kind of okay with not named Justin Jefferson, like someone I valued and the way he carried himself and how he bought all of his. all of his clothes are bought with Kohl's cash, everything.
Mhm.
And I know Justin Jefferson came out yesterday or the day before and said, "Hey, like Kirk is our guy. Like
Mhm.
he's got to be here." And
Yeah.
I really don't want a quarterback not named Kirk throwing the ball to me. And I respect that. You know, your players standing up for you. I don't know if the organization's going to listen, if I'm honest. I kind of think it
Right.
depends on what's going to be available to them come this offseason. Where are they going to be in terms of the draft? Do they think they're going to get a premier guy in the draft?
Right.
Those are the questions that are really going to lead to Kirk Cousins staying or leaving. I do feel awful that he got injured. I'm not going to be a Vikings fan that was excited and it had a sports decade moment of the year about injuring Aaron Rodgers and breaking his collarbone.
Hmm.
That's not what this is. But I do genuinely hope Kirk comes back and plays next season for a team as a starting quarterback.
Mhm.
I don't want him to be just like the veteran backup to
Yeah.
a rookie to mentor them. I want him to come back and just ball out. Maybe in San Francisco. You know,
Maybe.
if
Oh
they're
yeah.
not sold on someone out there, I could see Kirk doing very well
I think the two
in
things
that
that will
offense.
determine that is where the Vikings sit in the draft and if they think they can get a guy, and how much Kirk is asking for, because he just finished his big contract, so now they got to renegotiate what's
Yep.
going forward, right? So it'll depend a little bit, and it's hard to go from what did he get?
84 million, something like that.
Yeah, it was a lot, all guaranteed. He was the first one to get the all guaranteed thing. He kind of shattered that myth that it couldn't happen. And then now he's like looking at where am I and what am I going to ask for? So I think those things will combine, but I do think he'll start somewhere.
Yes,
I do think he'll
Yeah.
I mean,
start
he
somewhere.
before he was injured, he was putting up as many people won't not want will not willing are not willing to
You-
say it. He was putting up MVP numbers at a very high level, even without Justin Jefferson. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns with Addison, and even just the player part doesn't matter. The attributes and the the stats don't matter because the day after his ACL tear, he was on a I don't know what you call it, but like a wheel that you put your leg on it, the leg to heal, and the wheel you just roll around on it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
scooter.
The scooter,
Yeah.
and he was at the Vikings facility, for I guess Halloween or whatever, and he was there, giving autographs, taking pictures with people, all these things that just shows that his character is he has a very high standard for his character and
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
philanthropy and his output.
And I think another part of the Vikings' decision, Matthew, right? I do agree their draft position matters, but what does free agency hold for the quarterback market
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
this offseason? And we've seen the past couple years, it's been rockets firing, everyone's trying to go all in. Is there going to be a quarterback of value that they can get cheap that
Right.
might equate to Kirk Cousins? You know, is Matthew Stafford, is this his last run in with the Rams?
Right.
Do they make a big move and get Kyler Murray and they think Kyler's going to be their guy?
Mhm.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but I want him to be somewhere on a team in an organization that I'm not contractually obligated to hate, so I could root for the guy.
So you can begin to like
Yeah.
publicly
Yeah.
say, I like this guy.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Well, hey,
right.
let's go on and talk about our midseason review. This is where we're going to grade our team, grade our new quarterbacks, because we all had new quarterbacks this year. Major free agent signings, re-signings, just kind of those kind of grades, 2023 draft grades. And so I want Brandon to go first, just in case he has to be at something or do something. I know you're kind of in the middle of stuff. Brandon, what's your midseason review of the Packers? Your new quarterback, your signings, your draft class.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm giving it a solid D. I don't think it's a complete failure. I really don't. I don't
Not
think
a
it's a complete
complete
failure, but it is bad. It is really bad. Like I mentioned with Jordan Love, I still like Jordan. I think he's doing a lot of the right things, but the pieces around him are not computing with the right things he's doing. You know, if there's a ball that's in your hands and you just straight up drop it, that's not Jordan's fault. He put it in the best position for you to succeed, and you did not do it. But of course, that the national media puts that against Jordan, and so then it's automatically his fault. So Jordan, I'm fine with. I give Jordan maybe a C plus overall. I was expecting to give him a B. He's underperformed in other areas, but he's making decent reads. He's putting the ball in great positions. He's reading the defense well. Just the rest of the team is failing around him. The offensive line is awful.
Mm-hmm.
Our receivers and their ability to catch is not where it needs to be with people not named Romeo Dobbs. And then some reason we're not utilizing Aaron Jones. That's an F right there. Not
That is an
utilizing
F.
your best
That's an
offensive
F.
player. That's a F. Oh my gosh. And you know, I'd give the Packers an A if they fired Joe Barry today and brought in someone else. Because we need someone that's going to be tailoring to the strengths of our defense. I'm not sold on playing this aggressive zone scheme all the time. Right now, the aggressive zone scheme is what's failing in the NFL. You know, things go in waves and we see things go in and out. The 49ers also play this aggressive zone scheme and teams are figuring it out. They're like, oh, well, there's going to be a hole here. There's going to be a hole here. It's too predictable. And so we need to start switching to a man coverage, a less aggressive zone, a more aggressive man. And that would look a lot better for our defense and quite frankly, the 49ers too. Because they're, as we just talked, on a losing streak after a massive winning streak. And a lot of it has to equate to their defense. So there's adjustments that need to be made that are not being made. So solid D right there. Special teams, yeah, it's okay. You know, our kicker has missed one kick this season.
Mm-hmm.
That's better than I thought it was going to be based on his preseason stats of missing every kick.
Yeah, at least he got it together at the right time.
Yeah, and it was just a kick, I think, this last week or the week before. So about half the season he's made every kick, and some of them have been rather impressive. But, yeah, D, 6 wins by the end of the season, I think.
Okay. I'm actually going to go next with the Colts, and I think I'm going to give the Colts a B- right now. And you may be like, that seems a little high, but we're working with a backup quarterback, so it's not what we expected. Unfortunately, our new young quarterback, I was super excited about. Where some of the grade goes down is he got hurt too much. That's part of him. And because of that, he's out. Now, Shane Steichen, I love what Shane Steichen's doing. We've started faster in the season winning games, and we started faster in each game, like starting off in the first quarter, getting scores. That was all stuff we didn't do with Frank Reich. We never scored. We lost like 4 of the first 5 games. We always were behind after the first quarter. We would never score, and we were always like kind of trying to come back in the fourth. So I've seen better with Shane Steichen. I like Shane Steichen. I like, as far as our draft class goes, I talked about Anthony Richardson. I like him. I bring it down a little bit just because of his injury and he's out. Not totally his fault, but I'm still super excited about having him, and I don't yet fault that one bit, even with Will Levis throwing 4 touchdowns for the Titans last week. I also think Josh Downs was a great pickup. Josh Downs is looking so good and so great at route running and toe tapping and getting open, all those things. And this is his first year. He's only going to get better. I'm still a little frustrated with Alec Pierce because he's now been in this is his second year, right? And I thought he would be better this year, and he has promise, and you could see where it could be great, but he's like not always getting it. And so, yeah. But as far as the draft class, I'm trying to think who else we drafted. Juju Brents has been doing better as a cornerback. He's been getting better. He got hurt. I think it was last week. And so he's not in this. He wasn't in this week. We had all backup cornerbacks in. And it showed. That was part of the problem. New Orleans just they attacked our cornerbacks and our safeties relentlessly with some of those long throws. But anyway, overall, I think our draft class has looked good. Our offensive line has looked better this year. Last year, it was horrible. We got back pieces, and it's looked good. Our defensive line, I hate that Grover Stewart was out for 6 games for PED, but the defensive line, even with the backup in his place, they've looked good. And Gus Bradley has been doing a good job with what we've been doing defensively. I like that. Our special teams have looked great. Matt Gay, broke the record for 50 plus yards in a single game, and he hasn't missed. I don't think he's missed a kick yet this year. I don't think. I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, I think every facet of the game looks good, but we're just not there yet. We're not going to be there. As much as I like Gardner Minshew, I said this earlier in the episode, he's good, but he's not going to be the one to take us further. He's not going to be the one to make us elite. I like Gardner Minshew, and I think he's got good accuracy. He's got good knowledge, but he just doesn't present enough of a conundrum for a defense that they know how to cover him. They don't have to account for and if he has to hold the ball for long, if he does a quick throw, he's great. If he has to hold it for any length of time, that's when all these turnovers are happening. Either he gets hit and it's fumbled and whatever, or he throws it really bad and somebody intercepts it. And so those things, that's showing that Minshew is a great backup, but he's not meant to be our starting quarterback. And so overall, even though we're not going to have a great winning season, I still give our team a B- because I think Shane Steichen's taking them in the right direction. He's teaching them how to prepare better. They're starting games faster. They're getting more cohesive. We just need Anthony Richardson back, and we need to add one more wide receiver, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know. Just to throw a name out that I just barely have thought of. Anyway, probably won't get him, but it'd be great.
Maybe he's a Packer. Maybe.
Let's not think about anything but Colts. We're going to put very positive thoughts about Marvin Harrison Jr. being a Colt.
You know who I think would make an excellent Colt as well? And I know you have Anthony Richardson right now, but if injuries persist, Kirk Cousins.
No. I mean, not that I hate Kirk Cousins, but I want the young future. I don't want the old end.
QB.
We've had too many old ends in the past 7 years. Too many. Let's do young future, optimistic, looking forward. But Kirk Cousins, great guy.
Yeah, great
Josh,
guy.
how about the Commanders? What's the grade?
So unlike these guys, I'm going to hopefully go down every segment.
I'm going to go down every player on the 53-man roster.
No, just every major thing we're talking about. Quarterback, free agents, draft class, and then I'm going to go to my team overall. But quarterback, I'm giving a solid B+. I mean, he had one bad game against the Bills, 4 interceptions, but ever since then he's had one maybe two. I think every other game, if he's had an interception, it's only been one. But like I said, he performed up to par, if not better than Jalen Hurts last week. I think he yards at the end of the quarterbacks in the NFC East, maybe the most touchdowns, and he has very similar numbers to Patrick Mahomes. This guy, with the offensive line and with the cast he has around him, I guess the cast is very good. With the offensive line he has, is performing way above my expectations. At midseason, I'd probably give, if at midseason, when we talked about it in July, I was expecting a C- or a C, right at the middle average. But this guy's a B+ for me, B or B+. Major free agent re-signings or signings, to highlight a few, just not break them down individually, but highlight a few we signed or re-signed. Andrew Wiley, offensive line. Nick Gates, offensive line. Cody Barton, linebacker, and Tyler Larson, center. Besides Tyler Larson, I'm giving this a solid D-. If Tyler Larson is included, probably a C- or a D+. These offensive linemen, especially Andrew Wiley and Nick Gates, have not performed up to par, and it's just the whole Ron Rivera scheme of working things. Sign these under average or underperforming offensive linemen or players in general, and hopefully they fit in, I guess, well into your system. And obviously they haven't been. Tyler Larson went in for one game, a single game, against one of the best defensive line rushes and pass rushes and run stuffs in the league, and the Eagles, and allowed 0 sacks and probably performed very well in the run game. And I'm hoping he's the starter for the rest of the season. But overall, D+, D for free agent signings. Draft class, I'm also giving a D+, because outside of I think it's Chris Rodriguez Jr., our running back. He was drafted in the 6th round. None of these guys played at all. And Emmanuel Forbes, they continuously put him up against the top receivers. To Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown twice. I can't name others, but every time he's performed against these guys, he's outmatched easily. And it's not a knock on him, because you're playing against the top 10. Both of these guys are top 10 receivers in the league, but it's the coaching that is not preparing him and not equipping him with the skills and whatever that is needed to perform against these top guys. Obviously he's going to grow. Obviously he's going to have mishaps and stuff, but to perform so badly and so poorly against these guys with amazing speed and amazing ball hawk ability, although he's a little short, amazing ball hawk ability, and you're getting like 100-yard games against these receivers are getting 100-yard games against you. That's a clearly bad coaching. And even Darrell Green, the legendary Darrell Green, quarterback, played 20 seasons for the Redskins, Hall of Famer, like 10, I don't know, whatever, but 10 Pro Bowls, a couple All Pros, whatever. He even came out and on a podcast or in an interview, whatever, saying he's like, I think Emmanuel Forbes is a great player, but the coaching is not there for him. And if the coaching continues to not be there for him, he's not going to have the true ability he has. And I see the true ability. And obviously that's a knock on Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. So you get the right guy for Emmanuel Forbes in the next couple of years. I might relook at it and, grade this differently. But right now, everybody has been underperforming. Even we haven't even been using our center we drafted in the second round or the third round, and our tackle we drafted in the third round, or Jartavius Martin in the second round, our safety. So overall, a D plus or a D. Alex Rodriguez or Chris Rodriguez Jr., our running back, has been the lone bright spot. And then overall grade, I'd give it a solid C, just right in the middle, average. We performed great against the Eagles two times, and we performed terrible against the Bears and the Giants, both terrible teams. But overall, after ever talking the draft class, the free agent stuff, quarterback, I'd give it a solid C, and a very lone bright spot is Sam Howell, how he's performed this overall offseason, or this whole season.
Yeah, we all had hoped that we would be grading them at an A and that our young quarterbacks would be proving the world wrong. I just got a text on my watch, popped up, and it said, if we were doing a redraft, is C.J. Stroud the clear number one? I'm like, dang, it's already happening. But there it is.
Give it 3 years, 3 seasons,
I would like to
and
say,
then we'll tell you who's the clear number one.
Right. I would like to say before we move on, though, I saw this, looking back at the 2022 draft class, although it's not this year. If you look at those quarterbacks, Sam Howell is clearly the best quarterback in that draft, and he was drafted in the 5th round. That says something about either A, Sam Howell's ability, or B, how terrible the quarterbacks have been in this draft class. You got Kenny Pickett, and I can't think of the others, but that's the one that comes to mind, Kenny Pickett. But Sam Howell's been performing above these guys every single game.
Isn't that your Tennessee guy and your Atlanta guy?
Oh, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder. There was another guy in this first round, I believe, but Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, and Sam Howell's been performing above every single one of these guys, stat wise, ability wise, accuracy, throwing, it's all there. And for him to be drafted in the 5th round is just that's if he performs like he has been performing for the next 10 years, that might be the next Tom Brady, honestly. Aside from the championships, his ability and his talent might be the next Tom Brady.
We'll see. Give us some years. Hey, we're going to quickly hit our trick or treat. Or we're not going to quickly hit it. We're going to get to it because this is a fun one. We just had Halloween, and that was also this same day. Yeah, the same day as the draft. The trade deadline. So this is our trick or treat NFL trade deadline edition. And we're going to start with none other than a team sitting here among our group, Packers. They were involved in a trade. That's not something you usually see with the Packers at trade time.
Well,
it's not, Brandon?
It's not a trade that benefited us, It's this one that really screwed us over. And I don't know who I was talking to about this. Josh, remind me if I was texting you about this. Rasul is the one guy on that team I would not have traded right now.
Not me. It wasn't me.
All right. Well, it wasn't you. It was someone else. He's the one guy I would not have traded right now for a few reasons. Yeah. He's our only corner that's doing anything given that Jair Alexander is out. The only one. He is such a positive force in the locker room that we needed a veteran back there with his energy showing us what it was. And I get, we're a business. They traded him. They felt like his value was highest as it was going to be right now. And so
what did they get for him?
So they sent Rasul Douglas in a 5th round pick for the dreaded 3rd round pick. And I think I did text Josh about that.
Yep.
A 3rd round pick.
That's where you guys cannot draft.
You just
aside from Jaden Reed.
Yeah, well, I think Jaden was a 2nd round pick.
He was 3rd. Your tight end Musgrave was 2nd.
All right. I thought Jaden Reed was. We had multiple seconds, so I thought he was one of those. But no, you do not trade for a 3rd round pick. Go a 6th round pick. Go a 4th round pick. I don't care. Trade a 3rd round pick and Rasul for a 2nd. That's much better.
That could have worked.
Oh my gosh.
I would have done that.
Yeah, I would have traded a 3rd-round pick just for anything, a 7th-round pick. We have better luck there. Straight up, 3rd round for 7th round, I would have done it.
So my question to you is, does this signal anything to you from the team? Because I felt like, and you can respond to this, I felt like this was them saying, you know what, this season's shot. We're looking to next season. Because he's a good player.
I think part of it is that, and Buffalo's going to do really well. And before I fully answer that question, the thing I loved, so he got into Buffalo. I watched the video of him entering yesterday. The team just cheered him on. They were super welcoming, and I'm glad he's in a positive environment.
Yeah.
He was listed on the did not practice list yesterday, but just the arrived. Reason is just arrived. You know, it wasn't it wasn't an injury reason. So I thought that was pretty comedic. But back to your question. Yeah, I think the Packers are like, okay, yeah, we're kind of shot. I still don't view it as a rebuild because they're not gutting anyone else on the team. Mm-hmm. The rest of the team is still remaining intact. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like if we were going for a rebuild, it's like, okay, Jordan, we're trading you. You got a year left on your contract. You're going to be super cheap. There's going to be a team that's going to pay for that. We're going to trade Jordan. Christian Watson, we're trading you. Kenny Clark, we're going to trade you. Preston Smith, we're trading you. I feel like that would be more apt of a rebuild that I've seen thrown around on Twitter. Mm-hmm. But we're not getting rid of those people. We're keeping those people and then just adding more stuff on top of that. And so
how old was Russell Douglas?
27, 26, somewhere in there. Mid to late 20s.
They're definitely still going younger, it looks like. And they did lose Bakhtiari, and he may be done. You think he's done? You think he's done for good?
I do. Yeah. I don't think he returns to Green Bay. He'll probably be a Jet next season.
Yeah.
Since Aaron said he's going to return, he'll probably be a Jet. And we'll probably get pretty decent stuff for him from the Jets because Aaron's going to say, I want him, and they're going to pay for him.
And he's still under contract.
He is still under contract. But he needs to be, off the injured list to trade because you can't trade an injured player. They need to pass a physical for the trade to, and we just learned that,
we did
with the trade deadline just happening. So I think the moment he's able to pass a physical, he's a Jet in my eyes. That's what's happening. And I love David. I do. He is quite the guy. And I think he was a Hall of Fame career cut short due to injury. I think 4 more seasons of his premium play would have gotten him a gold jacket. I don't think he is anymore. He's
you don't think he'll make it back?
No, he's lost too much time with injury. He's lost 2.5 full seasons, 3 full seasons.
Yeah.
If he does, he needs to play until he's 40, and you don't do that as an offensive lineman.
Not as a lineman.
Not a lineman.
Yeah. So I think it was a Hall of Fame career cut short. I appreciate all the time we have with David. I miss Rasul. I do. He was like our knight in shining armor that we got from Arizona, just one random week off their practice squad, and he's really turned his career around. But he's playing with Micah Hyde, former Green Bay Packer now in that defense. So I think they'll look pretty good out there. Rasul's had a pick 6 so far this season, a couple interceptions, and he's really cemented himself as a capable corner in the NFL.
Yeah, so I know Packers fans loved him. You would hear them all shouting, Rasul!
Yeah.
Well, there's another team that I, in my heart, felt like they might be giving up a little bit as they got rid of 2 people who were great defensive ends. I know one of them hasn't been great this year, but talk to us, Josh. What did the Commanders do at trade deadline?
So they traded both of their defensive ends. Not, I wouldn't say stars, but I'd say very good players. I mean, they weren't the clear, defensive MVP for the season so far.
Were they the best defensive ends you had?
They were, definitely. I mean, it depends. I mean, Casey Duhil, our backup, but I guess our now starter, has been playing solid when he gets the opportunity. But overall, I don't think the defense as a whole has been playing very good enough. So it's like you can't really give a grade to these players. But Montez Sweat was traded to the Bears for a 2nd-round pick, and Chase Young was traded to the 49ers for a 3rd-round pick. that would turn out to be a compensation pick. So it would be in the hundreds range. But I would like to add first that can you imagine if the Bears traded us a second round pick and they don't re-sign him? Because right now Montez Sweat said that he's not currently ready to sign an extension and said, I just want to consider everything around me before I make a decision. Can you imagine that they trade him midseason hoping to, I guess, revamp their season in some way, and they lose the second round pick, and then it's like, I'm going to walk. I'm going to go somewhere else. And they just wasted a second round pick on a very good, talented defensive end, a very good pass rusher, and something they need.
I wouldn't call that a waste on the Bears. I'd say that's right up their alley.
Right up their alley, but it would also
the way they roll.
It'd also be a waste. But then trading Chase Young for a third, I was very iffy about. Third round pick for Chase Young, who's clearly better than Montez Sweat this season. But then when you look at it, and it's like, all right, you just flip these around, and it's like Montez Sweat was for the third round pick, and Chase Young was for the second. And then it's like, all right, that seems like equal trade value. That seems what I think thought they would go for. And so it's like, either way, you got what you were expecting, but not for the player you were expecting. So either way, I guess it's a win. But I was also expecting Chase Young to be part of the rebuild because he's so young. I mean, he's on his last deal, so he's like 25 or 26. He's younger than both Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, who we have extended. And so I thought he would be part of it. But honestly, I looked into Montez Sweat a little bit more, and he clearly didn't. I didn't think he was going to be here. I didn't think he was going to sign an extension, whether that was for the price tag we wanted, and there was a big gap between what he wanted and we wanted, or he just didn't want to be in an environment like this. And then Chase Young, I haven't seen much of it, but if they weren't, going to want to be here, then I can understand trading it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm looking like we traded our defensive ends. We still have solid backups in Tuhill, F.A. Obata, and James Smith-Williams. They mighty if the defense is still not performing up to par, because of all that talent they have, it's not because of these guys leaving. It's just because the Jack Del Rio and his play calling, all these things. But overall, I'm excited for the future. We have 2 seconds, 2/3, and a first, as long as nothing else gets traded with new ownership. That is clearly ready for a rebuild, which is funny because Josh Harris also owns the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils of hockey. And the 76ers, like less than 12 hours earlier, traded James Harden to the Clippers for a bunch of players and whatever. So he was clearly in the mood for trading.
Yep.
Trading, not only trading, but trading their star players. But he's clearly in a rebuild process, a trust the process mode. He's, James Harden is nothing shy of an average player. And clearly, he didn't want to be there either. I saw reports of him, not being a good locker room presence, just wanting out, and so maybe Chase Young and Montez Sweat were in the same boat. And if so, props to Josh Harris for completely taking control of this, not letting Ron Rivera in this, and making these trades happen. So I'm ready for the future. We have 2 first-round picks, 2/3, and a first, like I said. And I'm just waiting for new ownership or new GM, new president, new head coach, new defensive coordinator to have any sort of input on the player they want in the draft and the free agent signings. Because we have, along with these picks, we have $90 million in cap space next year. So you're going to see Josh Harris making moves. He's already making moves. He's already, pulling heartstrings for Commander fans, trading Chase Young and Montez Sweat, 2 very cornerstone players of our defense. But honestly, it had to happen. And I'm coming to that realization that it had to happen because of them not wanting to resign. I'd rather get something out of these guys than, letting them walk, because Ron Rivera made this stupid decision of not trading them or not re-signing them or not picking up Chase Young's 5th-year option in that process. So overall, I'm a little iffy for the rest of the season because we still have a chance to make the wild card if things go up, like if we continue to perform how we played against the Eagles. But then again, we also let 35 points go against the Eagles. So that clearly says something about the defense. So obviously, I'm just excited for the future.
Well, you might have the option this offseason to bring Preston Smith home.
I could.
Just saying.
Or maybe.
Now he plays linebacker and corner.
Corner, yeah.
I don't know a more versatile guy than that.
Are you hopeful speaking, Brandon? We have a couple more kind of bigger trades and then some smallers, but the Cardinals traded a quarterback, Josh Dobbs, to the Vikings when Kirk Cousins got hurt. Everybody was like, who's going to be there? Now we know. It's Josh Dobbs.
Poor Josh
So
Dobbs.
as we continue, obviously me and Brandon spoke about ours, Brandon easily thinks this is a trick for the Packers and a treat for the Bills. I easily think this is honestly a treat for both teams, Bears, Commanders, and 49ers. They get great players. We get great picks for the future. So going forward, is this a trick or a treat for the Cardinals and the Vikings, and then the rest of the players and the teams we have listed?
Okay.
I think a trick.
For
the Vikings, trick for the Vikings. Dobbs is not your long-term answer. This is his third team so far this season. He started in Cleveland.
Yep.
And then was removed from Cleveland, sent to Arizona. Arizona's like, all right, no, thank you. Even though he was doing pretty well for Arizona. I genuinely feel bad for him because he was doing well. And now it's his third team, his third offense. There's adjustments every time that need to happen. Yeah. And that just doesn't happen regularly in the NFL. Your third team of the season when you've been doing well in each system you've been in. So it's a trick for the Vikings. He's not going to play next season for them. They're going to go and get a younger guy.
Yeah.
And that's just what's going to happen.
They're going to bring back Kirk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
Right. It's one or the other. Not Josh Dobbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's a trick for the Vikings. It's a treat for the Cardinals for what they got for him.
Yeah, especially to get Kyler Murray back or either Clayton Thune or whatever. They're going to get Kyler Murray back at some point, but just adding draft capital is a win for the Cardinals.
Yeah, all they got was a sixth, but still. Giants traded defensive lineman Leonard Williams to the Seahawks for a second round pick and a fifth. So
I will say this is. Oh, you can finish.
I was going to say, just by compensation alone, this is a bigger kind of trade than the rest that we're going to get into here. But what were you going to say, Josh?
I can just from what Leonard Williams got, this is exactly what I was expecting out of Chase Young, but they didn't. But Leonard Williams is a very talented defensive lineman, more of an interior defensive tackle, nose tackle type guy. But I don't know what was going on there. Maybe it was a chemistry issue between the team, or maybe a culture change. He wasn't good for the environment. Maybe they just wanted capital to build for the future, or I don't know. But Leonard Williams is a very solid defensive lineman, and the Seahawks have been lacking a very solid defensive line overall the last couple seasons. So I know they gave up a second, but for a talented guy like Leonard Williams, still on a contract, I don't think you're going to have to extend him. He's not on a contract year. I think he's got a couple of years left in that. So to get that guy, not having to worry about re-signing him, this is a treat for both teams, honestly, in my opinion.
So when you trade away something that's a third round or higher, you trade a player away to get something that's a third round or higher, I think it's clearly your team saying, we're not doing great this year. And let's look at the teams. We got the Packers, Commanders, Cardinals, Giants. Okay. Cardinals was more of somebody needed a quarterback and they just happened to have the guy. Mm-hmm. The other teams trading away somebody. We're trading away somebody who might have had value, but they're looking toward next year. Let's get down to the last three. Browns trade a wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, to the Lions for a sixth. Maybe not as much we're giving up, but we don't use this guy. What do you think about that trade, guys?
I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a very solid third or fourth round receiver. Not easily not a first or second, an X or a Y basically, but he's a very solid slot receiver if he plays that position for the Lions. Very solid player overall. And to trade a 6th round pick in 2025, not 2024, as a matter of fact, but a pick in 2 years in the 6th round, a very late round pick. This is a win. This is a trick for the Browns and a treat for the Lions, honestly.
Wait, a treat for the Lions in that the Lions are getting more?
No, the Lions traded it. Yeah, the Lions are easily getting more out of this.
A 2025
6th. The Lions trade that for a wide receiver, a very good receiver.
Oh yes, they get. You're right. I was thinking of that backwards.
Yeah. Treat for the Lions, trick for the Browns.
Yeah. Vikings did end up trading someone away once they got their quarterback, but offensive lineman Ezra Cleveland to the Jags for a 2024 sixth. Mm-hmm. You know anything about Ezra? To me,
this one, oh my gosh, what a trick for the Vikings. Ezra Cleveland is a very good. He's a right guard. Very good right guard.
Very good left guard, right guard.
For a freaking 6th round pick. No.
And boy, the Jags, that's a treat because
that's
the Jags.
a treat for the Jags because they're
Trevor Lawrence is like, yes.
That's like the king size candy bar treat. Right.
They're already ahead of their division by a couple of games. and all they had to give up was a 6th-round pick, which honestly would probably become a bench player or might even be cut on from the Jaguars. So
Hit or miss. Yeah.
you get a guy that is a starting left guard that, clearly the Jaguars need offensive line help, and they got it. It was very talented left guard or right guard, depends on where they play him. And the Jaguars or the Vikings get what, a 6th-round pick that might be cut from the roster next year or become cut day or whatever. I think this is easily a trick for the Vikings, a treat for the Jaguars.
Yeah. And lastly, Eagles traded a defensive lineman, Kentavious. Is that how you say his name? Kentavious Street?
You guys,
and a 2025 7th to the Falcons for a 2024
you guys
6th.
might not know who this is, but I put it in there because it happened, within the period of trade deadline stuff. But I honestly don't know who it is. But based off of what I've looked at, he's a very solid rotational player was a very solid rotational player for the Eagles. And the Falcons just lost Grady Jarrett, who's a very good defensive tackle. So putting this guy in that role, or pairing him up with one of the other defensive tackles they have, because they lost Grady Jarrett, I'd say this is a treat for both teams, or a treat for the Falcons. And
I think it's a treat for the Eagles because they already have a lot of good players there, and they're getting something for this guy who is not their starter.
I'd say so.
Yeah. All right, so that's our trick or treat. I can't remember if any other big trades happened, but what I do know is Colts stood pat. Only team on this pandemic homer group that did, and I guess I kind of expected that. I actually expected the Packers to stand pat.
Yeah, usually that's how it is, and we've talked about that the past 3 seasons. We're like, all right, the Packers might do this. This makes sense for the Packers, and then it's just dead silence. And I think I sent Josh the clip that best sums up the Packers at the trade deadline. It's an old recording from Mike McCarthy.
Oh yeah,
So someone asked him, and they're like, "Mike, what are you guys planning on doing around the trade deadline?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "What is it? What?" he doesn't even know what it is
because they know they're not going to do anything.
Well, honestly,
he's like, that's about how it goes.
I was even surprised we trade. I know I kind of expected Montez Sweat just from rumors, but Chase Young was a very big surprise. But in general, I was very surprised we traded both of these players away because our team is led by Ron Rivera. He doesn't make big free agent splashes. He doesn't make big free agent or big trades, and he doesn't make. You
said it right earlier. Josh Smith's hand was guiding this
Josh
stuff.
Harris's hand. Yep, this
or
is
Josh
all
Harris.
Him. This is all him.
And I think Ron Rivera is not very long for the Commanders.
Yeah, I was about to say this. If this is all Josh Harris, because we've seen in the past, Ron Rivera does not make these trades, does not make these signings, And for Josh Harris or for the Commanders to make these trades for these 2 star players is clearly Josh Harris and maybe somebody else involved, but mostly Josh Harris. And Ron Rivera was like, "Oh, okay, I guess. I mean, can't do anything about it." But there's been memes going around. You know how Ron Rivera always just crossing his arms. He looks really upset. Whatever. There was memes been going around. It was like, where's in practice Tuesday? So today, or I guess Wednesday or Tuesday. So yesterday or today, he'd be like, "Where's Chase Young and Montez Sweat? Are they not able to practice today?" He's like, and Josh Harris is standing there like, "Ron, we just traded them," because he doesn't have a say in these things. He doesn't know. But yeah, this is clearly also a sign that Josh Harris is fully in control, not a Dan Snyder type thing, and that Ron Rivera is clearly on his way out because Josh Harris does not trust Ron Rivera to make these type of trades and these things.
All right, let's go on to our next part here. The Week 9 preview. We're going to look at our teams and what we expect will happen. I'm not going to pull this out really long because we have other stuff to talk about. But the Colts at the Panthers. I've been kind of saying the Colts might win some of these last couple games, and they just the more I see of Gardner Minshew as the starter, it's like he does well, but he also gives away so many points. He can't seem to get us over the hump. And I think the Panthers might get their second win against us, as much as I hate it. Frank Reich coming back, you think we would have extra juice. I still like Shane Steichen better, but I'm going to predict. Here's a nice little stat, and they said it all the time last week in the game. But the Colts have the only team to have scored more than 20 points in every game this season. So it's not like we're slouching, but we're just barely losing every week, and we might do it again. I'm going to go 27-24. Panthers win it somehow. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I'm going to say. Josh?
Commanders play the Patriots, and I will, because the Patriots got mentioned, I just completely forgot about this, but there has been rumors that Josh Harris making another Josh Harris move, clearly not Ron Rivera involved, is interested or wanting to make a trade with the Patriots for Bill Belichick this offseason. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I don't know if that's true, but there has been rumors about it. But overall, I think if the Commanders can play like they did last week on offense against I'd say a good defense. I'd say the Patriots have a good defense. They just don't have a good offense. And their offensive line continues to stand stout. They continues to stand up against these guys. Matthew Judon and Josh Uche or whatever. And we start Chris Paul and Tyler Larson again. I can see us winning by a lot. Mac Jones is clearly not a good quarterback. Sam Howell is completely better in all aspects of the game. We have a very high-powered offense with Terry and Dotson and Logan Thomas and Brian Robinson. I just don't see them holding us to less than 20 points, and I see the Commanders winning 24-13.
Okay, Brandon, you got the Rams this week. Rams at Packers.
Rams are coming to town.
Might not be playing this week.
What?
Matthew Stafford might not be playing this week. It said I read this morning he was had like a thumb injury or a shoulder, something like that, a shoulder or thumb injury, and he is questionable.
I've heard all these Matthew Stafford injuries before, and he's played.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, I have some experience playing Matthew Stafford, given that he's a former Lion for quite a few seasons. Played him twice a year. I always heard, Matthew Stafford might be out. He's got that ankle. And guess who was right there under center using his ankle? Matthew Stafford. So I think he's going to want to play. This is the game for me. I mentioned I think the Packers might get a total of 6 wins this season. This is one of those games where the Packers might duke it out for a win. I'm not hopeful for a lot of games. The Rams are not particularly a great team this season. And so if we're going to duke it out with the team, and especially the thing that's always so nice is Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay games. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we've had some great ones the past 5 seasons. And I have no doubt this is actually going to be a good game. But it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think both teams are under 3 touchdowns and maybe a field goal each. In the 24 range is going to be the winner. And loser is probably going to be either down a touchdown or down a field goal. That's what I got.
Are you not saying who is going to win?
I think Packers win. It's one of these few games I think the Packers might pull out. But then again,
that's what I thought you were saying.
Who's going to be covering Puka? Is it Preston Smith?
Eric Stokes?
If Preston Smith is covering Puka, that's going to be great for my fantasy team.
Might as well turn the
awful
TV
for
off,
my mental health.
Right.
That's what it's going to come down to. Because you guys know I got these Rams receivers on my team, and I'm not confident in this Packers defense right now. So I think my fantasy team might look pretty good. We'll find out. I think Packers win, just on a hope and a dream. But it'll be a closer game. But with that, I've also got to take off. So you kids have fun.
All right. You have a good day. Thanks for joining us, Brandon. We'll see you later.
Peace out.
Yeah.
All right. For Josh and I, we're going to talk a little bit about the marquee manure and my oh my game. So I'm going to actually add this. We'll get over here and get it. Where's that? All right. So we got our games coming up here, and we're just going to kind of flash them on the screen. But we're going to talk a little bit about who's our marquee, who's our manure, and who's our my oh my. And we do have Brandon's marquee, even though we may not have the other two. So let's go ahead and talk about those. Let's go ahead and hit Brandon's marquee. Who did he have for marquee?
Seahawks at Ravens.
Seahawks at Ravens, right here at 12 o'clock on CBS. And we don't have his reasoning behind that, but the Seahawks are tied for first in their division, I believe, and Baltimore's first in their division. So this should be a good game. And I agree, that could be a good one to watch, one you might need to see. Why don't you go ahead and go next, Josh?
My marquee game is, there's a very constant theme around me where, and it's not intentional, but I always pick the Sunday Night Football games a lot. The last couple of weeks I have. And that continues this week. But my marquee is Bills at Bengals. And I mean, there's a lot of options. You got You could have picked Cowboys, Eagles. You could have picked Dolphins, Chiefs. You could have picked Seahawks, Ravens. You could pick a lot of games. But I mean, the Bengals are on a very. We thought we saw them going downhill for a bit. They were like 1-3 or whatever, and now they're 4-3. The Bills are somewhere in the middle there. You know, they're up and down too, but they aren't up like the Bengals are now. And so I feel like this could be a bounce back game for the Bills, and it's going to be a close one. But I still think the Bills win.
Bills are actually sitting at 5-3 right now. Dolphins are 6-2, so they're second in their division by one game.
Yeah.
We'll have to see that. Because I think for my marquee game, I did pick the Dolphins KC game. This was before KC lost to the Broncos. That I was like thinking this was going to be such a great game. I still think it'll be a good game. Both of them are top in their division. Are they tied? I think they are tied, right?
What?
Both with 6 wins, 2 losses.
Something like I
Let
think so.
me just check. I've got this. Dolphins are at 6-2. KC is at 6-2. Yeah, so it's another one of those where they're kind of tied up and they're both wanting to kind of keep shooting for that first place in the AFC because I think they're the 2 leaders. And so I think this is a game you got to watch. It's going to be a good one. Miami versus KC. Let's go on to the manure game. The game that's just don't even worry about tuning into this one. What do you have, Josh?
Giants at Raiders. Don't even tune into this. Giants, they don't have anything going together. They don't have anything going right. They don't have anything going for them. It's just a very, very ugly show in New York or New Jersey, technically. The Raiders, they just fired their GM, their coach, their offensive coordinator. They promoted their linebacker coach to head coach.
Different quarterback.
Different quarterback. They're starting Aiden O'Connell, which actually might be the lone bright spot of this game because he was promising in preseason. But just I expect the Raiders to win this one just because of the fire under into new head coach or new interim head coach Antonio Pierce and what he brings to the players as a former player, the chemistry there. And Aiden O'Connell is clearly based off preseason, clearly better than Jimmy Garoppolo has been. So I expect this to be a Raiders win, but it's not even worth tuning in. It's just one of those where it's like you check at 4:15 or 7:30 when the game's over, and it's like, oh hey, they won. Or you check during your fantasy, your middle of the game during fantasy on your fantasy app, and it's like, are you serious? Josh Jacobs has me 5 points, and it's like, oh, there's the score. Just don't even tune into it.
Yeah. If I would have known the firings and the stuff that were going to go on 2 days ago, I might have picked this, but I did choose my manure game before and I'm sticking to it. And that is the Commanders and the Patriots. And I know the Commanders will probably win this one. I agree. But like both of those teams, Washington has kind of made it evident we're getting rid of some pieces because we're going to build young and we're going to build, what I want. But even though they may have some people come in and they may end up winning this game, I don't know how exciting, unless you're a Washington fan or a New England fan, I don't know how exciting this game is going to be for you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with that one, even though I might at this point agree that New York, Las Vegas is going to be kind of more of an ugly show. Let's talk about our My Oh My games. Who's going to be your My Oh My this week? The one's like, oh, now there's something to watch.
Yeah, Cowboys at Eagles. Not only because they're 2 great teams. They're 2 wild card and divisional winner teams. They could go. This division could go either way, honestly. But this rivalry is so epic every time they play. It's an NFC East classic rivalry, and it just comes down to like what quarterback performs better every single time they play. And I don't know if that's Dak Prescott. I don't know if that's Jalen Hurts, or this week at least. But it's just always a great game between these guys. Sometimes a lot of times actually, there's a fight somewhere between them because it's a divisional game. But overall, this game is just exciting. 2 top teams going against each other. Divisional game could be a fight. 2 good quarterbacks. It's just something I'm excited to see.
Who do you think will win?
Eagles.
I also agree. I think the Eagles are going to win there. That is an exciting game. One I should have picked, but I actually picked one that you picked for your marquee game, and that is the Bills-Bengals. Bills won last week. I thought they might get a surprise upset. I think I told you all I thought the Rams might beat them. They won. They're still kind of in contention here. Cincinnati's trying to get in contention here. Both good teams. They both have had experience playing each other. Good quarterbacks. I'm excited to see Buffalo, Cincinnati, to see what happens there. But by no means am I saying that Philly-Dallas game isn't going to be a good one. But I've got it for something later here. Let's go ahead and talk about what's your upset of the week.
Upset of the week is Raiders over Giants. I mean, it was my manure game, but just going into this, and it's like new head coach, new offensive coordinator. They're going to bring something new quarterback. They're going to bring something new into this team that we have not seen before. Whether it's the quarterback's play, the play calling, the coaches, how fired Antonio Pierce, how fired up he is with his new team because he was a former player, whatever it is, or because maybe even because he just gets this opportunity to show how good he is. But whatever it is, this team is going to come in and they're going to wreak havoc because they're so fired up with everything new that's going around them, and the Giants are not looking good in any sense of the game.
So it's weird, except for we know all the firings. I was going to say it's kind of weird when you first look at it to think the 3-win team is going to upset the 2-win team.
Mm-hmm. But it just makes
that's what you have. But it's all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think for my upset this week, I've already kind of said it earlier. I think Carolina is somehow going to upset the Colts. That's a 1-win team upsetting a 3-win team, but there's reasons behind that too. I hope this one does not happen, but I think it's going to be my upset of the week. Maybe I'm on a streak now of the one I call doesn't work out. Maybe that's what I'm hoping. Reverse psychology on it. Because I'm a Colts fan, those of you who don't know, who might be listening. What about your lock of the week?
Lock of the week is Titans over Steelers. Steelers offense has not been looking good. The defense is still there, but Will Levis is playing tonight. So that just makes it any more exciting for Titans fans, any more worrisome for Steelers fans. Mm-hmm. And if Will Levis continues to play like he did last week, this is going to be a very easy win for the Titans.
All right, my lock of the week, you've already picked for a different game, and that is Philly over Dallas. I know that's not, most people would be like, oh, that could go either way. I'm going to say Philly wins that one. So that's my lock of the week. Philly goes to 8-1. Dallas goes to whatever their record is. Okay, well, let's see. What else do we have here before we leave? I don't think we have much for the Commissioner's Minute. But what about our, you wanted to talk about fantasy MVPs a little bit? What's your fantasy MVP from this last week?
My fantasy MVP was Jahmyr Gibbs. Clearly, easily my choice. He got me it was like 35 points, and I was down by 40 or 45 or something like that to Evan Newens, and Josh Jacobs got me like 15 or 20 or whatever. And I was like, before this game started Monday night, I was like, I'm living on a prayer right now. I'm hoping this game works out, or hoping I win, because I started 0-1, had 3 wins, 3-1, and lost 3 in a row. So I'm 3-4. And Jahmyr Gibbs got me the win, 35 points or whatever he got me the win by like 5 or 6 points. And so he was my fantasy MVP. And although I didn't put a graphic up for it because I thought, I'd be more professional about it. For any of you people who are my age, or, in the range of age, born around 1995 to, I'd say 2003 or 2005. Of course, I had a picture of Jahmyr Gibbs up there, but I also had a picture of Gibby from Mike Harley up there. So I thought that'd be funny. But I just couldn't post it. I thought that I'd be more professional about it. So
I don't remember who I even picked for mine. Probably Tyreek
Hill. Yeah.
Yeah. He does well for me week in and week out. And when everybody else is just kind of blah, I can always count on Tyreek Hill. So he's a good MVP to have. I think that's all we've got for this week. We do thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget, if you're voting, to vote for those predictions for fantasy next week. And we're going to look back at week 8 and forward at week 9 next week, or opposite, back at week 9, forward at week 10.
Yeah.
Join us on the Football Fandemic, and thank you for watching.